Home ownership in Ghana is one of our biggest aspirations and also one of our biggest frustrations. Is owning a home truly possible, or is it becoming increasingly out of reach?
We have a huge deficit, close to 2 million. Only 10% of this stock is provided by the real estate sector. About 90% of prospective homeowners resort to personal buildings. It takes people about 10 years to be able to complete their houses. Ghana has one of the lowest mortgage penetration rates in Africa.
Yes.
And some estimates put it at less than to our GDP.
I know a lot of people have had questions about how can we own when the properties are so expensive.
Housing is critical for everyone, but not everyone will be able to own a home. When they are due for retirement, they don't have anywhere to live. We don't want this to happen to anybody.
So would you say you have a bit of a bias towards public sector workers?
I don't want to raise the numbers yet, but within the next 5 years, home ownership is possible, but it requires planning. It requires information. You may choose to use part of your pension or tier 3 pension or tier 2 pension to make some lump sum payment along the way. We don't require any deposit.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Let's say someone earning 5,000 cedis a month, or maybe someone earning even much lower. What kind of income profile can easily get onto the scheme?
That's a very good question.
This is interesting. Home ownership in Ghana is one of our biggest aspirations and also one of our biggest frustrations. Now, for many working Ghanaians, the question is simple but very heavy. Is owning a home truly possible, or is it becoming increasingly out of reach? Now, we hear about housing deficits, we hear about high interest rates, we hear about affordability, but then what we rarely get is clarity. Now, how exactly does the system work? And where does the National Home Ownership Fund fit in? Now, with the National Home Ownership Fund housing fair coming up, this felt like the right time to go beyond the headlines and also speak directly to a source. So today we're sitting with Mr. Prosper Hoetu, who is a lawyer and also the CEO of the National Home Ownership Fund, to explore the structure, to explore the schemes, the challenges, and also the long-term vision behind one of Ghana's most important housing interventions. So if you care about owning a property in Ghana, and if you care about financial stability, if you care about how policy translates into real opportunity, then this conversation matters for you. So let's get into it. Mr. Hoetu, you're welcome to Ghana Ground Up. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Desmond.
Well, we've been thinking of having very deep conversations relating to the real estate space in Ghana for quite some time. And this time around, this year, we promised our audience a lot of deep conversations. And it's really exciting to kickstart our series of conversations with one that hits home for many people, especially when it comes to the issue of owning home and affordability, home financing, and all that. So to kickstart, I'd like you to tell us a bit about what the National Home Ownership Fund is and what it is not. Is it maybe a mortgage institution? Is it an institution that builds affordable homes? Like, what really is the National Home Ownership Fund? And kindly give us a little bit about that.
Thank you very much. And I'll begin by also thanking you for the opportunity for this conversation. Home ownership remains a major challenge in Ghana. There are a lot of people who desire to own homes, but the situation is such that because of issues of affordability, they are unable to own their homes. And home ownership is quite fundamental. It responds to issues of dignity, safety, and security. And as the working public, if you want to have the peace of mind to contribute effectively to national development, then home ownership is one of the ways that such issues should be addressed. When we take our statistics as a country, we have a huge deficit, close to 2 million housing units that we will need to address our home ownership challenges in terms of supply. And interestingly, only 10% of this stock is provided by the real estate sector. I mean, the formal real estate companies as we know them. And so about 90% of prospective homeowners resort to their personal buildings or personal construction through an incremental approach. And it is essentially because many people find it difficult to access support to be able to buy homes. And so the only alternative is to um, do some self-projects, self-construction. And on the average, it takes people about 10 years to be able to complete their houses when they are self-financing it. And so you travel around the country and you see that there are a lot of uncompleted buildings because 90% of our housing stock comes from individual effort. And so it tells you clearly that we have a demand and supply challenge. I already mentioned the housing deficit, and the 2024 housing profile, Ghana's housing profile, actually reveals that only about 5% of Ghanaians are able to, go onto the market to buy homes without any form of assistance. A significant 60% require some form of intervention by way of mortgage, by way of rent to own, by way of other financial schemes of support to be able to own homes. But another significant number of about 35% require some form of subsidized housing, which we call social housing. And so you see that for such a significant number, people are forced into unconventional settlement, unconventional places like metallic kiosks, wooden kiosks, and other kinds of dwelling places, which have their own complications in terms of sanitation and things like that. So it became so important that a certain intervention is put in place to address both sides of this challenge. So that is where the National Homeownership Fund comes in. And so the fund responds to both the demand side challenges, which is how do we develop innovative financing mechanisms to empower the Ghanaian worker to own homes. And then the supply side is, real estate companies also need some relatively cheaper capital to invest so that houses can be affordable. But if they go for commercial facilities with very high interest rates, then it translates onto the cost of the houses. And so there was also a need to have a regime or a system where developers can access cheaper capital to be able to build so that the houses can be cheaper. So the National Homeownership Fund then piloted various schemes. So one of the flagship schemes is actually the National Mortgage Program, which seeks to develop the local currency mortgage market. And mind you, Ghana has one of the lowest mortgage penetration rates in Africa.
Yes.
And some estimates put it at less than 0.5% to our GDP.
Interesting.
Compared to countries like Namibia that are recorded 23%, South Africa about 16%. And if you have enhanced mortgage penetration, it means that there are opportunities for people to access financing to be able to own their homes. But because we have very low mortgage penetration, people are not able to access such facilities to own homes. Our mortgage interest rates are very high, between 25 to about 35%. And traditionally, many financial institutions actually started with a dollar mortgage. And so the fund's intervention is to help to develop the local currency mortgage market.
Okay.
Now, all these things point to a combination of factors. That we don't have long-term cheaper capital to invest in mortgages and housing because of our macroeconomic instability. So you have fluctuating exchange rates, for instance. And so it is difficult to have long-term capital. Banks will find it difficult because the risk is very high. When interest rates keep going up, the exchange rate keeps going up, then you notice that people cannot even pay their mortgages. So people have had very bad experiences when it comes to mortgage. So that also translates into high rent inflation. So you see that rent is high because there's a lot of competition for rental houses. And so, and because we have a deficit, we cannot even enforce our rent law. So the fund intervened under the National Mortgage Scheme through what we call a blended financing approach that seeks to achieve lower interest rates. And so what that means is that government, through the National Homeownership Fund, is able to advance cheaper capital to participating financial institutions that work under the scheme. And so because we do that, the the interest rate on the mortgage is far lower than the market rate, that's what you find as the commercial rate. So, for instance, our current interest rate is about 13%. And because the 91-day Treasury bill rate is also going down, our latest calculation points to the fact that we may even achieve a single-digit interest rate under the mortgage scheme.
Yes, interesting.
Which we are working towards. So at least about 10% or 9%. So we are actually concluding negotiations with the banks that we are working with. And so when that happens, we would have significantly lower interest rate under the National Mortgage Scheme. And what that does is that a lot more people will be able to take up the opportunity to get mortgages to acquire homes. So the other layer of intervention was the introduction of what we call the rent-to-own scheme. So rent-to-own operates like instead of just paying rent, and when your rent is due, practically that's what happens in Ghana.
Yes.
Even though the law is that you should not pay beyond 6 months of rent advance, unfortunately, due to the market forces, it's difficult to enforce that law because it's like if you go to a landlord to rent a space or a house and you cannot raise the 2 years rent advance or 1 year rent advance, the landlord wouldn't be bothered because once you leave, there will be somebody else knocking at his door.
Unfortunately.
And so the rent-to-own option allows a beneficiary, whoever applies to be part of the rent-to-own scheme, to occupy the house and then pay rent. But part of the rent becomes equity contribution towards owning the property over a certain period of time.
Okay.
And so, assuming you were paying 2,500 a month, and after 2 years, if you are not able to raise the money, you are thrown out, or you have to look for an alternative, you may be paying like 3,500, and part of it, you are building equity towards ownership of the property.
Okay.
So that is another pathway towards ownership. So apart from the mortgage, you also have the rent-to-own scheme. And the rent-to-own scheme is also amenable to some flexibility, so that at some point you may make some lump sum payments to be able to reduce the number of years that you have to pay. So that option too is available under the National Homeownership Fund. Now, when it comes to the supply side, we also work with real estate developers under the National Mortgage Scheme. And our strategy of achieving affordability is that because we are mindful that salaries, especially those of public sector workers, are quite low, we try to work with developers that are willing to develop properties within certain price points. And so we work with them, we look at their designs, and then we give them go ahead to do the building. And then once we agree with the banks to book a certain number of mortgages, the bank is able to advance construction loans to these real estate companies that are working under the scheme to be able to complete these houses. And so you can see clearly that we are responding to both sides of the housing challenge. So essentially that is what the fund does. And then through our construction financing, we've also been able to invest in some properties which are available for sale to the general public.
Interesting. Wow. Well, that was a very comprehensive outlook on what the National Homeownership Fund is and what it is not. But then, since you talked about making it accessible for the working Ghanaian to own homes, what happens to the informal sector? Knowing well that a large portion of Ghana's workforce lies in the informal sector, are they also covered? Is there any way for them to get on the schemes that you've outlined, or is it limited to just structured work for now?
Okay, so let me explain that this scheme is open to so especially the mortgage scheme is open to any taxpayer in Ghana. And so the only thing is that you have to walk to one of our banks. We have GCB Bank, PLC, Stanbic Bank, and Republic Bank. These are the financial institutions we are working with for now. But other banks have heard about the scheme, and there's so much interest in working with the scheme, with the fund. And so we've been exploring partnership to be able to work with other banks. Yes, so when it comes to the informal sector, all you need to do is to demonstrate that you have consistent income, and that you can provide your bank statements to show that you have consistent income, and then you can benefit from the mortgage. The good thing is that the property you are buying serves as collateral for the loan that you are taking. And so when you default, it is not difficult to deal with that. I mean, the property could be sold to another person, and then that can be resolved. And then when it comes to the rent to own scheme, there are no strict requirements in terms of income. All you need to demonstrate is that you'll be able to pay. So I think that the informal sector can also benefit from the rent to own scheme as well.
Interesting. So looking at the rent to own scheme, for the payment terms, is it flexible? So in a case where maybe someone wants to take up a unit, but then they want a more flexible rate over an extended period of time, do you have a fixed system for payment, or is it open to some level of flexibility?
So when it comes to the rent to own scheme, it admits to a lot of flexibility. Because mind you, our objective is to make home ownership accessible and much affordable to the Ghanaian. So the options are open. If you opt to make a deposit, a lump sum deposit, before you occupy the property, you are free to do that. And then you are also free to make lump sum payments along the way. So we give you up to 20 years.
Interesting.
Yes, to be able to pay. So I think that there's a lot of motivation to even pay quickly and acquire the property. And so at any point that you have a windfall and you want to go and make a lump sum payment, that reduces the total amount, and then within a shortest time possible, you are able to complete payment, and then you are fine. And one advantage too is that you don't live in another property and be paying rent and double rent. No. Once you opt for the rent to own scheme, you are already in the property. You get it. So what you would have been using to service your rent, you are using it to pay rent, and also eventually aiming at owning the property. These interventions are mostly for first-time homeowners because that's the problem, especially young professionals that we want to help to address their homeownership concerns or challenges. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then let me also add that under the National Mortgage Scheme, compared to the traditional mortgage, that will require you to pay some lump sum or deposit of, say, 20 to 30% of the total cost of the property. We don't require any deposit.
Oh, really?
Yes. So unless you opt to do that.
Okay.
Yes. But we don't require any deposit. Okay. So because that is another obstacle to home ownership. Many people cannot raise the initial deposits to be able to access a mortgage, and for that matter, they are excluded.
That's true.
But this one, because it's a special government intervention, you don't require a deposit. The bank can give you 100% mortgage loan or loan to be able to acquire the property and move in. And then once you move in, then the deductions will be made, so payments will be made to the bank monthly. This one too will give you a period of up to 20 years or the number of years that you have to retire to complete payment. And evidence available shows that many people are able to complete payment between 6 and 8 years.
That's good, actually.
Yes.
You're definitely helping people to own property.
Yeah.
So since you're working with some of these banks, and some of these banks already have their own mortgage schemes, how different is the National Homeownership Fund from the conventional bank mortgage?
Okay.
What's the difference there?
So there are a combination of differences. First of all is the interest rate.
Okay.
As I mentioned, because government is intervening to stimulate the local currency mortgage market, our interest rate is far, far lower compared to the commercial mortgage. So I think some commercial mortgages are from 18%, 20 upwards.
Yes.
But our current rate is about 13. And as I mentioned, because of the significant achievements of government in terms of the prudent management of the economy, the interest rates have gone down significantly.
Yes.
And as a result, it's going to impact positively on our mortgage interest rate as well. And as I mentioned earlier, our latest review points to the fact that we may achieve a single-digit interest rate on our mortgage scheme once we resume issuing mortgages, hopefully by the end of this month, under the National Mortgage Scheme.
Interesting. I mean, I'm very excited about the 13% interest rate you have, because at the current market rate, I mean, this is just almost the same as what we have for the dollar-denominated mortgages.
Yeah.
It's about 13, hovering around 13%. So this makes it rather interesting for the average Ghanaian who wants to take a mortgage to rather settle for a CD-denominated mortgage compared to the dollar-denominated mortgage. This is interesting, and it's even more interesting that you could actually hit a single digit.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, in that regard, I would like to know, is this, since this is a government-backed scheme, the properties that you have under this scheme, or the properties that people can purchase under this scheme, are they limited to only government-backed projects, or anybody can just find whatever property they like and then come sit with you and have a discussion on how they can own that property?
So currently, we have a set of estate developers that we work with under the scheme. And so we, again, our focus is on affordability.
Okay.
So we are looking for properties that we think are within reach for, the Ghanaian worker, especially the low to middle income worker. So we shop around. We engage real estate developers that have properties already that are within certain price points. Usually maybe 400,000, between 400,000 and maybe 1 million Ghana cedi, 1.2 up to about 1.5 million Ghana cedi. And then we list them under the scheme. So some have properties already that they are selling, which we can list under the scheme. But some also have their own land or they are already building. And we believe that their prices are within range. And so for such people, the bank and the fund jointly undertake the due diligence on the estate developer, making sure that we verify the title and all those things related to the property. And then once we are okay, we admit them under the scheme. And so once you come to the bank or come to the fund, we are able to tell you that, okay, we work with this real estate company. There are properties here, there are properties at Adenta, there are some at Pokwasi, or maybe Tema. And so you can purchase property under the scheme. So that is how the scheme runs currently. Yes.
Okay, interesting. So what are some of the key projects that you've been able to undertake when it comes to some of these developers that you're working with and all that? What are some of the projects that are already built that people can actually invest in?
So we have a number of them. We have some projects that we've worked on with Adom City,
Okay.
Atema Community 26.
26.
Yes, and also TDC Ghana Limited. Some of their properties have been acquired. Quite a number of real estate companies, Rehoboth Homes, I think that's the name of the company. Quite a number of them at various locations. And as we speak, we have also engaged more of the real estate companies to be able to list their properties and also to make them available to the Ghanaian worker.
Okay, interesting. Well, since you're helping with home financing, I mean, definitely we have the public sector workers and also the private sector workers. Now, I know it is safer for the public sector worker to get a home loan in the sense that the salaries are more stable, the frequencies, more stable compared to the private sector worker. So would you say you have a bit of a bias towards public sector workers, or you're fully open to private sector workers in a sense that they could change jobs, their income levels could go up or down, they could fluctuate, and that could bring up a risk of default on whatever mortgage facility that they're able to take. So how does that sit with you? How do you work on that?
Good. So let me say that we are open to any Ghanaian worker, any tax-paying Ghanaian worker, because we don't want to discriminate against anyone.
Okay.
Yes, but I appreciate the fact that potentially there's risk. The good thing is that under the scheme, we have not had difficulties at all in terms of default. It's been performing so well. And so, but the other thing, as I indicated earlier, that we are talking about property here. So if you come and buy a property and you default and you are not able to pay, it's not difficult to give it to another person to recoup our investment in order to get our money back. So risk of default is very low, and it's so far under the scheme we have not had any difficulties. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's good to know.
Yeah.
Looking at the market in Ghana, where it's largely a cash and carry market. I mean, people end up saving for a number of years and then they have a lump sum to pay for the property and all that. We, as you said, and as is the case, we have a very low mortgage penetration in Ghana. So based on the work that the National Homeownership Fund is doing, I believe it's safe to say that your work encapsulates trying to build a mortgage culture in an economy that is very reliant on cash.
Precisely. In fact, that is what this intervention seeks to do by ensuring that we grow our mortgage sector and make mortgages cheaper and accessible to as many Ghanaians as possible. And then, as I indicated, a significant number of Ghanaians need these kinds of interventions before they can afford houses.
Yes.
And investment in the housing sector comes with many other benefits in terms of stimulating the economy, promoting the use of local materials. In fact, one of the causes of the high cost of houses in Ghana is the materials that we use for building. We import about 80%
That's a high
of
number.
our building materials, and when you do that, and because of the high exchange rate, you can be sure. I mean, hitherto when the exchange rate was very high, you can be sure that definitely that will impact on the prices. But if we make it easier for people to access loans to be able to acquire houses, then that will stimulate the construction industry. It means that there is more demand, and so there will be more investment, but jobs will be created. We'll be addressing our spatial planning challenges, because if real estate companies are able to invest more in housing in planned communities, then it will also stimulate development. So that is the long-term object of the fund's intervention, to make sure that we make financial products mostly accessible, affordable to the Ghanaian worker, and by so doing, stimulating the housing sector, and also guaranteeing security and dignity for the Ghanaian worker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what has uptake on the fund been like? Have you seen more people coming in? How is that? What are the numbers like? How has it been?
So altogether, we can say that we've been able to support about 1,000 Ghanaians when it comes to a combination of our interventions, both the mortgage scheme and the rent-to-own scheme. Yes, so altogether. And so we look forward to supporting many more, because the interest keeps growing. And as you know, the fund is relatively new, so not many people know about it.
Yes.
So many of these things we are doing, many of the activities, the upcoming housing fair, even the interview that we are having, is to promote awareness on home ownership and what the fund does, so that many more can take advantage of these alternative pathways of home ownership, and to demonstrate that home ownership, the dream of home ownership, is not elusive after all, and that we can explore various ways by which anybody can own a home.
This is interesting. This is deep, and I really like what I'm hearing, in a sense that this goes beyond just policy talk, and actually goes to deal with the real issues we're facing on the ground. Now, one other thing that many of the people we interact with daily bring up is the issue of if they can ever own a home, and they're talking from the standpoint of how much they earn. So when it comes to the National Homeownership Fund, do you have, let's say, an income profile that is eligible? Let's say someone earning 5,000 cedis a month, or maybe someone earning even much lower, or maybe 10,000 cedis a month. What kind of income profile can easily get onto the schemes, any of the schemes, whether the mortgage scheme or the rent-to-own scheme?
So I'll start with the rent-to-own scheme. For the rent-to-own scheme, the scheme is not too much focused on a person's income.
Okay.
Not too focused on the person. So it doesn't go through a rigorous assessment like the mortgage scheme.
Okay.
So all you need to do is to choose a property that is under the scheme. So if you choose a property that is, say, 400,000 cedis, then your monthly rent is calculated for you based on a certain formula. Just that it is incremental. So you may start by paying, say, 2,500 a month for the first year, but the following year it may go up maybe by 8%, because we also anticipate that you may earn some more income, and that helps you to also finish paying on time. And so that one, there are no restrictions as to what they won't say go and bring your pay slip and things like that. But you would understand that this is how much you are supposed to pay per month for year 1, year 2, year 3. And as I mentioned, there are other options of paying lump sum. You may choose to use part of your pension or tier 3 pension or tier 2 pension to make some lump sum payment along the way. And so it admits to that kind of flexibility. It is the mortgage that you will require some of those strict requirements. But again, as I said, one of the differences between our mortgage scheme and a traditional mortgage scheme is that you don't require maybe 20 or 30% deposit before you assess the mortgage. The bank can advance you 100% mortgage.
Okay.
But the amount you can assess is also a function of your income. And so, depending on when the assessment is done by the bank, maybe you earn 4,000 cedis a month, then the bank can advise you that, okay, based on your income, this is how much you can assess. And that will inform the kind of property that you will be able to acquire.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So since we're dealing with a CD denominated mortgage under this scheme, is it also accessible to Ghanaians in the diaspora, or is it purely localized to, the Ghanaian right here?
For now, it's purely localized. But I'm aware that some of our partner banks have mortgages that target diasporans.
Okay.
So those opportunities are also there for Ghanaians living in the diaspora.
If you just joined us, well, this is Ghana Ground Up, and we've been speaking with Mr. Prosper Hoetu, who is the CEO of the National Homeownership Fund, and he has talked at length about so many wonderful things, so many amazing things they're doing in the fund. And what really sits really comfortably with me right now is the fact that the interest rates on their mortgages is at 13%, which is actually competing with the dollar denominated mortgages that we have on the market at the moment. So this actually opens up the market for more Ghanaians to actually own property than we actually thought. And I know a lot of people have had questions about how can we own when the properties are so expensive and all that. And the beautiful thing too is that this mortgage scheme or this financing scheme is not there to just support properties that are overpriced and all that. There's also a bracket that they are looking at. So everything is well thought out and everything has been comprehensively structured to accommodate whoever may be interested in taking up a mortgage. Now, one of the questions that I know people may have is about misconceptions. Reason being that anything that seems complex on the outside, a lot of people sometimes lack clarity, and so they may misconstrue it to mean something else, to be, we have that challenge. So I'd like to find out from you, what misconceptions have you faced from people who have opted to get on board to some of the schemes that you have?
Okay, so I'll say two key misconceptions. The first one being that many people think that the scheme is for public sector workers only. But our scheme is open to any Ghanaian worker who pays tax. And so this provides the opportunity to explain that once you are a tax-paying Ghanaian worker, you are eligible to access our mortgage scheme. The other thing is that the fund does not directly administer the mortgages. We work with financial institutions. The banks already have their mortgage schemes that they administer.
Okay.
So we leverage their systems to be able to do that. The only difference is that government through NHF provides financing to the bank, and then they also match it. And then we are able to disburse those funds, and then we issue the mortgages to the workers. And so those are the two main misconceptions that I think I'll have to respond to.
Well, so then, what are some key milestones that the National Homeownership Fund has achieved that you would love us to know about? Because I mean, definitely you, from what you've said so far, you're doing an incredible job. But then beyond that, we'd like to know what you would highlight as some of your key achievements.
Okay. So I'll begin by saying that so far,
Yes.
as I mentioned, the fund is relatively new, but it's been able to support approximately 1,000 Ghanaian workers to be able to acquire homes through our alternative pathways to home ownership, either through the mortgage or the rent-to-own scheme. And it's also been able to work directly with some labor unions like the Ghana Medical Association to be able to provide tailor-made housing solutions to them. And we have been able to leverage that to engage many more labor unions, many more employers to be able to, under what we call institutional housing, because part of our mandate is construction financing, we are able to facilitate financing to provide houses for workers through their unions or their employers. Because we know that many employers may have acquired land for housing projects, but the challenge is how to raise the financing to provide the houses. The same with labor unions. Labor unions usually acquire land for their members, but the challenge then is how do they raise the financing to do the building? And so we've been quite innovative in exploring other possibilities of addressing the housing challenge. One of the challenges that developers face is what we call offtake guarantee. So the fund is positioning itself to develop the entire housing ecosystem to ensure that we are able to support financial institutions, we are able to support real estate companies. So instead of real estate companies investing in building and now struggling to look for offtake or buyers, we are positioning ourselves to build a comprehensive database of prospective homeowners, which they can rely on to be able to do business. So once we guarantee the offtake, we will be able to resolve that problem with the developers. And then that means that they can turn around their investment quickly and reinvest. So assuming you invested, say, 100 million Ghana cedi in a project, and the fund, by the time, you are even done, we are able to assist through our various financing options, mortgage, rent to own, make sure that you recoup your investment. Then that enables that developer to move on to develop. So that's another one. Then the fund has also been able to implement a significant flagship housing project, which is the Temakon 22 development. And so this is a model community that has been built with all amenities to demonstrate that it is possible to build sustainable communities. And these buildings are actually EDGE certified with the IFC to make sure that they meet sustainable or climate smart standards in terms of electricity consumption, in terms of water consumption. Our model communities have covered drains. And so unlike other places that you go and then the drainage system is bad or the infrastructure is bad, the drains are open. No, we are promoting sustainable communities. We are building smart communities to make sure that we are not just building houses, but we are offering people homes to guarantee their decency and security.
Interesting. You really have so many things covered. And for someone who is on the side, maybe the person already has a home over his head, but then he still wants to invest into some scheme. I know there are schemes like REITs, that's a real estate investment trust. Do you have anything like that that people can invest in, knowing well that you deal a lot with the financing aspect of ownership?
That's a very good question. So part of the strategy to stimulate the housing sector was to set up the REIT. So the fund, in partnership with Calaset, set up one real estate investment trust. The business of the REIT is to to generate income through rental, sale of properties, and also through the rent to own scheme. So the REIT, so we did one with Calaset and we did one with GCB Capital. So the most active one now is the GCB one. It started off very well. So we are at the point of getting the license from the Securities and Exchanges Commission. And once that is done, it opens up opportunity for investment by both institutional investors or individual investors who can invest in real estate. And once that happens, it means that we'll be able to generate a lot more money or resources to reinvest in housing. And so I know that there have been questions about sustainability of this initiative. And that is one of our sustainability strategies, that once the REIT is fully licensed, then it will be open to institutional investors, pension fund managers, even financial institutions to be able to invest in real estate, because the risk is much less. Because we are talking about property, and the property is there.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Even if people don't pay, you just activate the necessary legal mechanisms to recover the property and then resell to another buyer. One other thing that is on the table is what we call the mortgage refinancing mechanism. And this works to ensure that mortgages that are on the books of financial institutions that essentially are becoming like non-performing loans could be profiled and be bought from these financial institutions, so that it will free them to issue more mortgage. So you see that there is a combination of interventions to stimulate the mortgage market.
Absolutely.
So when that is done, then it is sold to various institutions or individual investors, and then the bank will become more liquid to issue more mortgages. So we are in the process of doing some of these things already. So these are the sustainable mechanisms that we have in place to make sure that the fund continues to respond positively to the needs of Ghanaians.
One thing that has stood out for me is how well you have partnered with the private sector to execute this fund. And as it is, I mean, we've been hearing it so many times. I mean, in policies, in the news and all that, that the issue of housing in Ghana, the solution relies in partnership with the private sector and then the government sector, and that you're doing really well with. And I must say that it's very commendable. I'm very excited about what I'm hearing, and it's interesting. But then, stepping aside for a moment, you have a housing fair coming up, and that is something that I'd like our audience to learn more about. So please tell us about this housing fair, when it's coming on, where it's coming off at, and also what we can expect.
Good. Thank you very much. So you will notice from our conversation that you have discovered a lot more new information that you did not know before.
Absolutely.
And so we've also come to the conclusion that we need to provide information on opportunities in the housing sector. I recall that when we first announced the housing fair or the homeownership fair, people's reaction was like, okay, this could be the usual fair for the middle class. They'll go and see prices of properties that they cannot afford and things like that. But first of all, we are bringing various stakeholders together. Developers whose properties we know are within, the prices are within range, of, low to middle income workers. We are bringing together financial institutions that have various financial products for the Ghanaian worker. So we also create a platform through our panel discussions and presentations to educate participants in the fair about various opportunities that exist. And so if you are listening to me and you think that your home ownership dream is an illusion, I just want to encourage you to visit our fair on the 4th and the 5th of March.
Okay.
And the location itself tells you that this is not a middle class, upper class fair that we are organizing. We are organizing this fair at the ministries. And it tells you that there are a lot of public servants in that enclave.
Absolutely.
Both public servants and private sector workers within that enclave. We want to bring home ownership education closer to the doorsteps of the Ghanaian worker. And this is just the beginning, but our plan is to even go to other communities across the country, bringing home ownership education, telling them about the alternative approaches to home ownership. So whether you want to buy a land, if all you want to achieve is to buy a land, you come and see estate developers who have lands, who are selling lands, and they have flexible payment options. They have some special discounts because of our fair for you. And so all you need to do is to commit that, okay, maybe a parcel of land is for about 30,000 cedis, and this is how much you can pay. You work out some flexible payment option. Okay. So if you even want to complete your house, and as I told you, about 90% of those who are building do it on their own.
Yes.
And so what it means is that, and the 2021 Housing and Population Census states that about 80% of persons who are building have done so up to the roof level, but they have not been able to complete about 80%. So it tells you that if you are in that state, this fair is for you, because some of our partners, financial institutions, have home completion packages or financial support for you. So you can just take up a home completion package and then complete your house. The only issue is that you need to demonstrate that you have title to the land because of the risk factor. But if that is what you want, if you are looking for affordable house to buy, or you are looking for other building materials, you have all the options available to you to look at. So I want to encourage everyone who is watching us that this home ownership fair is for every Ghanaian. Whether you are in the private sector, or whether you are in the public sector, no matter your income level. And then the other thing is that there are a lot of emerging technologies that if you want to build, you can deploy. There are modular houses that are quite cheap, especially for first-time homeowners. You can opt for a modular housing option. All you need to do is to agree on the plan, the building plan with the companies, and then they take your specification, model the house, and within a month or two, you have your house. And so all these technologies are available. If you want to explore, you can come to the fair, visit the various stands, and explore. So I can guarantee that, yes, in the past, home ownership appears to be very complicated. People have had bad experiences with mortgages and all that. But we want to change the story. We want to change the story this time. And that is why we have started this option. And I also mentioned that when it comes to the financing options,
yes,
people can also use their pension funds. There are various banks and other pension funds that have developed products,
yes,
to encourage people to use their tier 3, tier 2 contributions as so like that. There's a pension backed mortgage, for instance. So if you are contributing towards your pension and you don't have a house, is it not smart to use your pension contribution to acquire a home?
Absolutely.
Which gives you a peace of mind, and then you are not thinking about when your rent will be due, and then you'll be avoiding your landlord and things like that. So I think that it's something that we are looking up to, and government has taken very important or key interest in the home ownership fair. For that reason, the chief of staff at the office of the president is our guest of honor, and then we are also expecting the minister responsible for works and housing, and also the minister of finance, my own minister, will be gracing the occasion together with many other government officials, various financial institutions, various banks are coming to display various products, insurance companies. So it's not too late. We have just 1 week to the fair.
Yes.
And so if you are a vendor, anybody who wants to exhibit at the fair, you are free to just visit our website or social media handles, and you can contact us, and then you can get a space to exhibit at the fair. And so this is where the homeownership journey of Ghanaians, young professionals begin.
Interesting. Well, I mean, as you can see, this fair is not your regular fair, which, I mean, a lot of people feel like, I mean, just go to the fair, go see the houses that are available, and then come back. This actually brings value to the table in many, many ways. When you look at the stakeholders that are involved, the financial institutions, the packages available, and this being a government scheme tells you that, I mean, it's going to cover many spectrums. So do well to be there at the fair. It's happening on the 4th and the 5th of March, and it's just a week away. And it's happening at the Ministry of Gender.
The old office.
Old office. Perfect. Perfect. So make your way there and come find out more about how you can own a home. Now, coming back to our conversations, where is the National Home Ownership Fund headed in the next few years? I would want to say maybe 5 years, but then let me not limit myself to maybe time, since the fund is relatively new.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, as you can see, the fund is very much poised to empower many more Ghanaians to own their homes, to give them the peace of mind to be able to contribute effectively to national development. You know that home ownership also has some direct correlation with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
11. Yes. So the fund, I mean, I don't want to risk the numbers yet, but within the next 5 years, we want many Ghanaians to feel proud that through the support of the fund, they have been able to acquire homes for themselves and their families, and which is the very foundation for national development. Because once you have healthy families, you have people who have peace of mind, they are able to contribute more effectively to national development. We also want to continue to stimulate the mortgage sector. And so in the next 5 years, we want to see mortgage penetration grow beyond the 0.45% to something more, something more significant. And we want to also contribute to reducing the housing deficit through our partnership with the private sector, through our partnership with employers, through our partnership with labor unions. And so with these kinds of mechanisms in place, we want to facilitate financing for cheaper long-term financing for financial institutions to be able to issue more mortgages, low interest mortgages. And we believe that through this, there will be more competition among financial institutions that will introduce different or varieties of products that will target the various needs of people when it comes to home ownership. So that is the direction that the fund is going. And ultimately, we want to empower Ghanaians with information on home ownership. We want NHF to be a one-stop shop for home ownership advisory services, that anybody can call our call center and make inquiries about home ownership, and we will readily assist such a person to make the right decision when it comes to home ownership.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, it's been a very in-depth conversation, a well-rounded conversation. We've covered so many things, And I'm very excited that we were able to have this opportunity. Now, taking a step away from work life to personal life, as a young Ghanaian yourself, I would like you to give you an advice to other young Ghanaians out there who aspire to own a home. What would be your word to us and Pat as well, I guess?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity. I think that as a young person myself, I don't know if I can call myself young again. I believe that home ownership is possible. Not everyone will be able to own a home, but there are different ways of approaching it. But housing is critical for everyone. But I would tell my colleague young people or my younger brothers and sisters that home ownership is possible, but it requires planning. It requires information. And then you start early. You need to take that step, that bold step towards home ownership. And I will encourage young professionals that have just started work that there's nothing more fulfilling than owning your own home. And so you can start immediately. I mean, it shouldn't be seen as, there are very sad stories of people who have worked throughout their life, and perhaps they may have occupied staff bungalows or staff accommodation, accommodation provided by their employer. And then when they are due for retirement, they don't have anywhere to live. It's very sad, and at this stage, we don't want this to happen to anybody. So I will encourage young professionals that, look, once you are gainfully employed, begin to explore opportunities for home ownership. There are trusted real estate developers that can offer you flexible payment terms to acquire land. And you should be able to do that. To be honest with you, that's how I managed to acquire my first parcel of land.
Interesting.
Yes. I heard about an estate development company. I approached them, and then I was able to take advantage of their flexible payment terms.
Okay.
I think it was actually more like a Christmas promo. I was able to, and because they are trusted, I did not have issue with title.
Okay.
And so I know that our land tenure system, it can be very complicated. That's why I'm a bit careful in my choice of words. That some of the real estate companies that deal in land, they are trusted. You can run your checks on them to be sure of their credibility. You can acquire the land, and then even if you don't have all the money to pay, and you are able to get offer letters from them, it's easy to approach any of these financial institutions that has a product for land purchase to be able to acquire the land. And then you can begin little by little to be able to, so that by the time you have worked for, say, 10 years, you would have acquired a home. Thanks. You can also take advantage of the mortgage option. You can take advantage of the rent to own option, because I know that many people are unaware about these opportunities. So I want to encourage many young professionals that look, it's a good thing, and so they should not think that it is not achievable. But I'm challenging them to take that step, including coming to our fair on the 4th and the 5th of March. And we will be able to assist, we'll be able to provide the necessary information and give them the necessary guidance to be able to acquire their home. And then our diasporans, we also have properties that we are selling in Tema Community 22. And also in Shy Hills. Yes. These are very ideal for holiday homes. And these are gated communities with security. So if you are a person in the diaspora looking for a home ownership opportunity, to even if it's an investment, don't come for dirty December. And even though you can give some money to our hotels, you can still acquire a property and stay here. And then even if you are not here, it could be rented, it could be use for Airbnb. Yes. So we have something for everyone.
Interesting. Interesting. Well.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we've been able to cover all the things that we've talked about, the things that you've responded to, the questions, the in-depth structure that you have laid out in the fund. And I believe that anyone who has caught on to this conversation today will have gained some insights and some value from what has been discussed. Well, I've been talking with Mr. Prosper Hoetu, Esquire. I mean, I just have to bring that in, and he's the CEO of the National Home Ownership Fund. The fund is doing amazing things, is doing wonderful things, and you don't need to remain afar to, just stick with your assumptions that homeownership in Ghana is a myth and is not attainable. It is actually more attainable than you may know. So get closer, come for the fair, and visit the website of the National Homeownership Fund. The details will be on the screen and find out more. And of course, you can also get in touch with us here on the podcast to find out more about home ownership in Ghana, about more about the interview. If there will be a follow-up, it will depend on the questions that you have. Mr. Hoetu, thank you so much for having us. I'm very honored to be here, and thank you for making the time. Thank you so much.
We are equally grateful.
All right.
And best wishes.
Absolutely.
All right.
If there's one thing this conversation reminds us, is that home ownership is never just about buildings. It's about systems, it's about capital, it's about trust, and it's about whether policy can genuinely meet people where they are. Home ownership is not just about buying property. It's also about sustainability, it's about structure and long-term responsibility. So as you can see, no single institution can solve Ghana's housing challenge alone. But then clarity moves us forward. And understanding the system helps you to make better decisions. The National Homeownership Fund's Housing Fair comes off on the 4th and the 5th of March at the old premises of the Ministry of Gender in Accra. So you definitely want to come around with all your questions to find out more about available home options, financing plans, and all the other packages that they may have available for you. And of course, you may want to find out about the weight of your capacity and if you can practically become a homeowner today. If this conversation gave you insight, do well to share it with others. And of course, subscribe to the channel. And if you still have questions, let's engage in the comments, because the future of real estate in Ghana will not be shaped by your silence. It will be shaped by your informed participation. I'm Desmond Kafui, and this is Ghana Grounded. I'll catch you in the next episode.